Steeler Fury. SteelerFury.com.
You are listening to the Pittsburgh Steelers Show on the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Bradshaw Ben, bringing you a bonus edition of the Pre-Draft podcast Extravaganza for 2020. In today's episode, we're going to visit with some prospects that we found interesting and got a chance to talk to over the course of the year. Speaking of this year's prospects, I got a chance to visit the NFLPA Bowl in Pasadena and attend practice and get a chance to talk to some players that I found interesting there. And the first one of them is a quarterback who has an interesting connection to Pittsburgh and got a lively arm. Throws a beautiful ball, is sort of a prototype quarterback, somebody that you'd, if you imagine in your mind in a Hollywood movie, the guy playing the quarterback, he kind of looks like that. So he looks the part, as they like to say, and he can play a little bit of football too. We got a chance to talk with him. He is Chattanooga quarterback Nick Tiano, and here's what he had to say. Once again, so let's start with who you are and where you're from and what you do.
Yep, so I'm Nick Tiano from University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and I play quarterback.
You sure do, yeah. You stood out today for the national team in practice here at the Rose Bowl for the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. I noticed that I actually got a chance to meet your father today, and I heard that he is a diehard Steelers fan. He's from West Virginia. Now, you grew up in Chattanooga, but being that your dad's a Steelers fan, I have a feeling...
For sure. No doubt, yeah. So, growing up, that whole side of the family, diehard Steelers fan. I had Hines Ward, Big Ben, Troy Polamalu, all those jerseys growing up. I've got a pennant in my room signed by Franco Harris, Mean Joe Green, all those guys. So, yeah, for sure. I was raised with that. Yeah. And, it's been really cool, so it's...
Well, that's a good place to start. Well,
sure.
The expectations are high then for quarterback play in your household. So,
no doubt. So, yeah, they've had some good ones.
So, let me ask you this, because this is a question, and I know a little bit about your journey, but tell me first, how is it that you became a quarterback? In other words, were you always the quarterback, or were you somebody that moved to that position?
Yeah, so my first year of football, I actually played for a team called the Hickson Steelers, and the weight limit to be the quarterback was 85 pounds or under, and I weighed 88 pounds. So I had to play tight end my first year, but then every year after that I played quarterback.
That's funny, yeah. You were too big.
A little too big. Yep.
Exactly. Well, there's a well-known former tight end quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, as you know. So
no doubt,
put you in good company.
No doubt.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. I know you started off. You were recruited by a lot of big schools, SEC schools, and you ended up going to one of them.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So went to Mississippi State out of high school. Was there for 2 years, redshirted, and then was there for a season. And they went with another guy, and I wanted to play. So it was just the right time for me to transfer and go back and play at Chattanooga. And was able to start for 3 years, and I had a great time. I love being at home, and it's a great place.
Yeah, it seemed like that. No matter how well you play or how good things go for you, sometimes you just get stuck in a place where it doesn't work out for whatever reason.
Yeah,
Nobody's fault.
Yeah, timing, whatever it may be, those things happen. But, you got to make the most of it, learn from it, and grow from it. And I think, those lessons that I've learned have kind of brought me along and made me grow up and be who I am today.
Yeah, that's true. Well, so playing at Chattanooga, you had a sort of a different kind of season this year. It seemed like you maybe lost some receivers early in the season. You had to work with new guys. But in a way, coming here to work with new guys again, something you'll have to do if you go to a pro team as well.
Yeah, for sure. That adversity happens. Whatever it may be, new coaches, new playbook, new receivers, injuries, those things happen. As a quarterback, you kind of got to find a way to pull it all together and perform regardless of circumstances. So it's been a good experience for me, and being out here has been amazing. It's a blessing. I'm thankful for it.
That's great. So just tell me quickly, how do you see your strengths as a quarterback, and what are the things that coming out here to the NFLPA Bowl that coaches are working with you on to try to get better?
Yeah, for me, I think there's a lot of guys in the country that can throw the ball well. So to me, my biggest strength, I think mentally, I like to try to be the smartest guy on the field, be the most prepared guy on the field. I think in the NFL, that's what separates quarterbacks. So out here is just working on that. It's an opportunity to learn a new playbook, learn more about defenses, learn more about kind of the details of the NFL and what it takes to be successful. And, I think that's just a huge step for a young quarterback to take.
Sure. Well, and it feels like the competition here is actually pretty stiff in terms of it's a step up, at least from even playing in a good conference like you did.
No doubt. Everybody here was the best player at their school, so it's a lot of really talented guys, and hopefully all of us can play for a really long time. So
hope so. Okay, and you talked to a lot of teams here while you're here in terms of scouts.
Yes, sir, for sure.
Yeah, so it seems like the NFLPA Bowl is a good experience for
It is. It's an unbelievable opportunity, especially for us small school guys, because we don't always get to play on these stages with these opportunities. So for us to be able to come out here and play with guys from every level in front of the scouts, with these coaches, it's really an unbelievable opportunity.
Okay, one last question for you. That is, the guys you're practicing with, who really stands out to you that is there a receiver or opposing player, on the defense?
Yeah, that's tough. All these guys, I think everybody brings something to the table. That's kind of a cop-out answer, but really, I've been impressed with everybody.
You're running for politics after your
For
career.
sure, no doubt. Yeah, no, I think everybody's done a great job. There's a lot of talented guys, and like I said, everybody does something well. So it's cool to see what all these guys can do.
Yeah, super. Well, I'm looking forward to see what you can do. Good luck in the game on Saturday, and then your prep for the draft. Looking forward to see you on Sundays.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Next up, I talked with a linebacker from a smaller school from the FCS from South Dakota State, Christian Rosenbaum. He's a inside linebacker, sort of a classic middle linebacker type, but he's the guy that probably wears the green dot someday, and I noticed him doing a really good job of getting alignments together and seems to have a lot of potential as an inside linebacker at the next level and potentially a special teams player. Christian Rosenbaum from South Dakota State University. Thank you for joining us today. I watched a little bit of your practice today for the American team here at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. What's your experience so far this week? You're having a good experience, learning experience.
Yeah, it's a blast. I mean, once-in-a-lifetime experience for sure. All these coaches, very experienced, a lot of years in the NFL, so it's cool to learn from them, pick up everything you can in the short time. So,
who's coaching your position group?
Seth Joyner.
Yeah, well,
so,
it's like.
I mean, yeah, it speaks for itself. So
yeah, that's pretty great. I noticed your signal calling. So you're looked like you were the ones relaying the plays. You don't have the speaker in your headset for this.
No, it's all coming from the sidelines.
Yeah,
so.
Although that'll be a thing and experience when you get to hopefully get a chance in the NFL. Yeah, but in terms of calling the plays, how do you deal with it on such a short week of trying to learn terminology and whatever? How do they simplify it for you?
They just made the playbook pretty simple for us, and it's what I played in college, so that kind of helps too.
Sure.
But just getting that terminology down, getting in the playbook right away, and then building on that. So
great. And so in terms of your play, you consider yourself more coverage-oriented guy or more of a downhill linebacker? How do you see? I know you looked like you stayed in a nickel package. So
yeah,
we've
all of us linebackers have kind of been rotating through. I mean, you got to be good at both of them. You can't just do one or the other.
Sure.
So just trying to get better this week on both of them, obviously. So
yeah. What do you feel the most comfortable with right now? That's the part that you're.
What I played in college is inside, so that's kind of where I'm comfortable, but willing to do whatever it takes.
Did you play weak side, or did you play the?
I played middle.
Oh, you played middle in a 4-3.
4-3, yeah.
Oh, I see. So this is a little bit of adjustment. You're playing more like look like more of a. Some looks anyway look like a little bit more like a 3-4 look.
Yeah, so we're doing pretty much all under fronts. So that was a little bit of adjustment. We didn't do a ton of that at school, but
yeah, I gotcha.
It's not too big of an adjustment. So
cool. So you in terms of this experience out here, you talked to a lot of scouts that come and. I think this is the game where you seem to get a lot of NFL scouts will come and talk to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposure, which is good for all the players here. So it's kind of a fun experience, talking to all kinds of teams. So
that's great. You have a preference for trying to go to a 4-3 and play in the middle, or do you? Where do you think your future is?
Honestly, whatever team needs me, whatever their needs are, if I fit in their system, stuff like that. I know I won't be a fit for every single team, but just finding that right fit. So.
That sounds good. Last question: what outside of football? What kind of stuff are you into in life? What's your, something that people don't know about you? Let's put it that way.
People can probably guess, but I go hunting and fishing a lot back in South Dakota, and I'm from Iowa too. So
I got you.
Besides that, just hang out with friends, hang out with my family, my girlfriend, stuff like that. Pretty simple life, but that's kind of the way I like it. So.
Sounds perfect. Well, enjoyed watching you today a little bit in practice, and good luck to you on the game and also in the draft process.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, cheers, man.
Thanks.
The next prospect up is a guy that I actually didn't really know much about at all before I went to Pasadena. He is an edge player that plays at James Madison University. I'd seen him on tape because I looked at some other James Madison players last year, but he's an edge rusher who is just got a lot of sort of intangible things that you look for in a defensive player. He practices hard. He is a sort of a bigger edge player as opposed to bigger and more powerful as opposed to just using speed to get by. And one thing I noticed about him is really advanced hand fighting work and upper body strength, and I think he wins a lot based on that. He is Rondell Carter from James Madison, and he talks with us next. All right, I'm here with special guest Rondell Carter. I just watched the national team practice today at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. And Rondell, thanks for being with us.
No problem, man. Always a pleasure.
So tell me a little bit about your story. Like, what makes your path to get here to the NFLPA Bowl special? In other words, what's the selling point that brought you here?
Man, I mean, before I'm a football player, I'm just a great person. You know what I mean? I think when you got a guy like that in your locker room, it goes a long way. You know what I mean? I've learned that when there's not a lot of good coach in the locker room, it's probably not going to win a lot of ball games. You know what I mean? But if you have a good coacher, you probably will. You have a chance at least to win a lot of ball games. So I'm just a guy, man, before I play football, I'm a better person. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I always preach to people. And I've always been that way. Now when I get on the field, you know what I mean? Now I'm that guy who's going to lead guys, who's going to go hard each and every time. I'm going to give my all, put my heart and soul into everything. And I've always been like that. You know what I mean? You want to put me inside in the pass rush, you want to put me outside, you want to put me inside regardless. I'm going to give it my all. I'm not saying I'm going to be perfect, but I mean, if you got a guy who's going to work hard and give his all, I mean, you can't do nothing but respect a guy like that.
Well, I noticed just in practice, the reason you stood out to me is that you seem like you practice really hard, even in the drills, in a way that sets the tone for other guys.
Yes, sir.
Seems like something you try to do.
That's what I try to do, at least. Yes, sir.
So you're, in terms of your experience here at the NFLPA Bowl, you talk to scouts, you talk to people, how teams have been interested in you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of teams interested in me, man, and it's been nothing short of amazing. You know what I mean? I'm blessed, honestly. When I come here, and just to be able to, when I go back home and talk, how was your experience? I can say I talked to almost every team in the league, you know what I'm saying? Just to say that teams are interested in me is just a blessing, you know what I'm saying? I'm very appreciative of it, man, and you know what I mean? This is crazy. It's still surreal. When I'm out here, man, I see Frosty and Marvin Lewis and Hugh Jackson. I'm low-key starstruck, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Marvin Lewis is my coach now. I grew up AFC North all my life because I'm from Baltimore Ravens fan. So I'm all
sorry about that.
No, that's all. No. I got you. And I'm looking at Marvin Lewis. I'm looking at Hugh Jackson. I used to watch y'all on TV. You know what I'm saying? And even Rod Wilson, a Hall of Famer. These are guys who I'm around Hall of Famers right now.
Sure.
A lot of my friends can't say that. You know what I mean? So I'm blessed, man.
Pretty good experience. So you working out somewhere special for the draft? What are you?
Yeah, so I plan on going to Michael Johnson Performance in McKinney, Texas. You know what I mean? Get my training right just so I can get ready for pro day and try to get in as best shape as possible, run as fast 40 as possible, throw as many reps up on a 225 as I can, and hopefully we'll see where that takes me.
You can run fast.
That's what I'll try to do.
So just a couple last things. So where are you from originally?
Baltimore, Maryland.
You are from Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm a Baltimore
I know
guy.
you said you were there around the area, and JMU's right there. So.
I'm from Baltimore.
And I think I was going to ask was they see you in terms of your NFL fit being a defensive end, off-ball linebacker, edge player. How do you see yourself?
I mean, I've told them if you need me to stand up in the 3-4 and rush, drop back if you need me to. I think I'm athletic enough to do that. If a coach can coach me. If you need me to get in the 4-3, put my hand in the dirt, I feel like I can set the edge on any tackle in NFL. If you need me to go inside and rush the pass, I think I can do that. So I feel like I'm versatile enough to do all three of those things, so it doesn't even matter at this point. I'm really just trying to do whatever people see I fit best, and I'll work around it from there.
Sure. And James Madison, it's like pipeline to the NFL now.
Yeah, man.
It seems like there's some guys from not only that school, but the schools you in your conference
CAA,
seem to be making a little headway into the NFL.
Absolutely. I always say the CAA is the best conference in FCS football. You know what I mean? Everyone, I think, if a lot of people that know football, they'll say the same thing. The CAA, just for the competition, amount of teams that get in the playoffs, and amount of teams that's in the top 25 from that conference. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The CAA is 100% the best conference in FCS football.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Well, hopefully someday Marvin Lewis will be starstruck and Rod Woodson when they see you.
I hope so, man. That's my plan.
Appreciate it, Rondell.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Later on, man. Good luck in the game. Next up is a guy that got a chance to see some footage of playing in the College Gridiron Showcase, and he has some interesting Pittsburgh connections, that's for sure. It's a name that will sound very familiar to those of you like me who are old enough to remember his great uncle, who was one of the most famous wrestlers of all time, Bruno Sammartino. This is from Dartmouth University, a center guard, really an outstanding prospect. I think you'll enjoy what he has to say. He's from Pittsburgh, went to North Hills High School. He is
This call is being recorded.
Well, we at Steeler Fury and the podcast are very excited to be joined by our next guest. He is a outstanding young offensive lineman prospect from the Ivy League and Dartmouth, and he has an incredible connection to Pittsburgh, which is something I'm sure everybody's going to want to hear about. Probably sick of talking about it at this point, but at any rate, he is with us now. His name is Zach Sammartino. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
You are, in fact, a Pittsburgher, and that's going to be something interesting to people here on the show. For those who don't know, your great uncle is, and I'm old enough to remember him, one of the great sports icons in Pittsburgh history, the great wrestler Bruno Sammartino. So tell us a little bit about your connection to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, I was born in Pittsburgh. I actually went to North Hills High School where I was an all-conference lineman there. Grew up in Pittsburgh my whole life. We had season Steeler tickets. We still do. Pittsburgh sports has been a huge part of my entire life, just growing up everywhere. And yeah, Uncle Bruno, great uncle. He was a great guy. He lived in Pittsburgh his whole life. He came over from Italy. That's where he died. And yeah, I love Pittsburgh with all my heart. It's a great place.
Yeah, I actually, really it's not going to be important to you, but your great aunt, his wife was my substitute teacher when I was in school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how far back I go. It was a really big deal too when she showed up and wrote her name on the chalkboard. We were like, oh, like I wonder if she's related. And so she's like, the first thing she says is, "Yes, that's my husband." And then she was into the routine. Being a substitute teacher. Here's a Pittsburgh question for you. Having grown up in the North Hills and living in the North Hills, when's the last time you went to the South Hills?
Couple years. So my grandparents actually lived in the South Hills until about 5 or so years ago. My dad's the high school teacher at Carrick High School, though, so he's down there pretty much every day. But I've been around the South Hills for sure. I'm familiar with that. My dad actually went to Bethel Park High School, so I've been around there enough for sure.
Well, Bethel Park High School is where I went to school, so there you go. But I just asked that question because when you're a Pittsburgher, you never cross to the other side. It's like a very strange thing. But people from the North Hills don't usually come down to South Hills and vice versa. So.
For sure, it's funny.
So tell me, how did you end up at Dartmouth? I mean, first of all, I'm one of those crazy people that has not only seen your highlight reel, but also some games you played in. And I even am one of the crazy people who watched the entirety of the College Gridiron Showcase practice tapes. So I'm pretty familiar with your work. Let me say this in a delicate way. You seem a little better than the average Ivy Leaguer. So how did you end up choosing Dartmouth, and how did you end up there?
Yeah, so it's a pretty good high school career. I actually started playing football late. I didn't play until about 9th grade, and I really wasn't that good at football until midway through my junior year. I kind of started finally putting stuff together, figuring it out. And then I got an offer from Dartmouth they were my first offer, or first D1 offer. They offered me the Friday before my first game my senior year. Never really thought I would go Ivy League. I remember when I got the offer, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'm not smart enough for that. My dad's just like, yeah, be nice to them, see how it plays out. Senior year went by pretty well. Got about 15 or 16 other D1 offers, both FBS and FCS. I was kind of down to Dartmouth, Cornell, James Madison, a couple MAC schools in Cincinnati. And I remember talking to my parents, and my eyes were really big for Cincinnati. At the time, they were a top 10 team playing in the New Year's Day bowl game. And so being an 18-year-old high school kid whose only thought was on football, it was tough to turn that down. But my parents kind of talked with me, and in the end, there were a bunch of Ivy League players in the NFL. Ivy League actually has the most NFL players of any FCS conference. And so obviously if you're good enough, they'll find you there. And if you're not, well, you had an Ivy League degree, kind of the best of both worlds. So I ended up being sold at Dartmouth. I loved my official visits up there. The coaching staff was phenomenal, and they were really turning their program around. They were pretty bad throughout the 2000s. And then the year before I got there, we went 8-2. And then my 5 years there, we had 2 9-win and 2 8-win seasons and 2 Ivy League titles. So ended up being Dartmouth. I ended up being the best of both worlds for football and academics. And I had 2 parents who were teachers, so they really appreciate the academic aspect of that as well.
Oh, sure. And I think the NFL likes players from the Ivy League because they make the assumption, probably rightly so, that they're smart. They're smart players. And I think if you're a coach, you want a guy to come in that is going to be able to get it whenever you give them instruction, right?
Definitely. I've heard that from a lot of the teams I've talked to so far, is that they love the whole Ivy League aspect, play on the offensive line, the fact that I can play all 3 interior positions, including center. They really like that with the Ivy League connection, being able to make the line calls, just being able to understand the playbook quickly.
Yeah, it seems like you had some pretty good coaching between high school and college. I mean, you seem to have pretty advanced technique, and I guess my first part of that thought that comes to mind is that it starts with your base, that you have a pretty good base. This is the obvious question. Did you have some kind of a wrestling background? I mean, I'm sure everyone asks you that because of your name, but your play style looks like it's influenced by that.
Actually, I don't. The sports I played before football were just basketball and soccer. So I think it's kind of a natural thing I have had. I remember my freshman year, it was like day 3 or 4 at camp, and we were watching film. We were watching like the bathtub groups to all the freshmen on our line. My coach, I remember saying, like, the one weird thing about like all 5 of you is you came in with a pretty good natural base. You all play really well with the base. That's going to take you far in life. And I ended up those 5 guys in my class on the offensive line that I came in with. Between the 5 of us, we had 4 first-team All-Ivies, 2 second-team All-Ivies, and 1 guy is currently on the Carolina Panthers playing tackle for them. So we had a really good recruiting class, and I think my offensive line coach really taught us up well.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's just the base thing is like, particularly in pass pro, it feels like you are like an immovable object, and it just feels like you're when you're standing with the right leg balance, it just feels like you must feel pretty strong in that regard. You didn't give up a sack.
For sure, I do.
That's what
correct. My entire career, no sacks, over 1,200 snaps on offense.
Yeah, well, I imagine when you go to the NFL, the first thing they're going to tell you is, "Well, kid, get ready," because when you give up your first one, you're going to give up your first one this week. That's the way they feel there. Sure. Hopefully, it won't shock you too much, when it finally happens, or maybe it'll never happen, and you'll end up being the greatest offensive lineman that has ever played. Which that wouldn't be bad.
Hey, I'll take that.
Yeah, that's for sure. So you don't have to. You just have this natural base, but in terms of the handwork, you credit your offensive line coach. And tell me who was the offensive line coach that you had there at Dartmouth?
Yeah, Keith Clark's the offensive line coach. He played football at Lafayette, and he's now been in the Ivy League for, I think 20, 25 years. He's stuck around there his whole life, and he's ended up being a phenomenal coach. I loved every second with him. It was a great time. He really teaches you the game of football, not just offensive line. I got a way better understanding of defenses, of safety rotation, of nickels, cornerbacks, just everything. The whole defense, just reading them, know what they're going to do, and I credit that all to him.
Lucky to have that kind of connection. Sometimes it's you can have a really good coach, but you don't necessarily connect. And sometimes you connect to the coach, but they're not that great. To get a little bit of both is, I'm sure that suits you well.
Right. He's actually a Pittsburgh guy himself. He went to high school at Mount Lebanon, so I think that kind of drew us in right off the bat during recruiting.
Well, we won't hold that against him that he went to Mount Lebanon. Don't forget where I went to high school.
True.
So let me ask you this: when you went on to the College Gridiron Showcase, this is a sort of all-star event that I think there's a lot of people that aren't familiar with it, but it's sort of by invitation. And I know that you were a little bit of a late ad down there. I just wonder what you felt about that experience. Did you get some kind of different input? Did you get a chance to play against some different players? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was a really good experience. I was actually a late ad because I got invited to the main showcase back in like September and October when the first round invites went out. And my D-line coach, who's also a pro liaison, was under the mindset that if you have to pay for a game, don't go. It was only a couple $100. They subsidized most of the cost already. But so I actually turned them down. And then as I was interviewing agents looking for someone to hire, all of them had the same consensus. And they were just like, you need to go back to that game. You need to get into that game as anything. And so after I signed with my agent, I called up the guy who invited me and was just basically said, hey, I got fed some bad information. I really need to get in this game. Is there anything you could help me out with? And he goes that the main showcase was full, but we can invite you to the small school showcase. And if you play well enough, the scouts will pick 8-10 guys to bring up to the main showcase and you can get back to where you were originally invited to. And so I jumped on that offer and just kind of put my faith in my ability and went down there the first 2 or 3 days for the small school showcase and played really well, caught the eyes of all the scouts, and they invited me back up for the main one. So I kind of got back to where I was invited 2 months back. And that was a great experience. I mean, I was on the field with some different guys, and I got to play against some higher competition. And I got to do it from about 160 scouts, got to interview with a bunch of teams down there. So that was one of the most beneficial parts of my whole draft prep process. I think I'd highly recommend that game to anyone considering it.
Oh, that's great. Like I said, I watched your practices. You say you did pretty well the first few days. I would say like you basically stole the soul of a couple of those interior guys you played against. I mean, it was like, they would give you their best, bull rush, and like you just didn't go anywhere. And then when you got in the sort of scrimmages with the run game, the guys you're just collapsing holes. And I mean, it was just very impressive what you did, particularly, like I said, the ease with which you caught guys in pass protection. You look like very naturally talented at that, and better than most prospects coming out of college.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no worries. Hey, just a quick side question before I ask you my next bit. That is Matt Burrell that played center next to you. Wonder what you made of him. He's an interesting cat that went to Ohio State and ended up Sam Houston and at the showcase. But I thought that he might have been an interesting guy to get to know.
Yeah, so I actually didn't know his whole Ohio State background until after I left the showcase and was talking to my buddies. I actually went to high school with him. But he was a really good guy all around. He was a good player. It was nice to be able to play with him. I enjoyed my time with him. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, just someone that I kind of like in this draft process a little bit, and that most people don't know about. So, I mean, that was for my own purposes of like, he seems like he's got a real interesting story. He did well there as well. You guys, the two of you looked like you belonged in a different level, which, you ended up going to the next day. Sure. So that's true. So what I was going to ask you next is, your Dartmouth experience. I'm sure you, like you said, you have Pittsburgh Steelers in your blood. You grew up with that whole experience. You don't even see. I'm old enough to remember a world before everybody in Pittsburgh was a Steelers fan. You grew up with that, but you have one connection, I'm guessing, that is a little bit better than the average Steelers connection, and that is the guy that's probably going to be the person who runs the franchise in the near future is Danny Rooney, who went to school. I'm going to say Dartmouth. I'm wondering if you have any relationship with him. You ever get to meet him?
He did. So I actually have only met him once. He came back up to school a couple years back when I was younger. But, he was there, I think, maybe until 2012 or 2013, one of our quarterbacks there. But no, actually, I've only got the chance to meet him once, talk for a few minutes. But from what my coaches said about him, they loved him. He's a great guy.
That's the kind of organization where you excelled in high school in the Western Pennsylvania, and you have a connection to some place that they keep tabs on. My guess is that you're solidly on their radar. Have you spoken to the Steelers at all? Are you allowed to say?
I have, actually. I've talked to them a little bit, correct.
Yeah, sometimes they were like, don't say anything because we don't want anyone to know we're interested, so they can stay away. But I do note that they have they may have some openings there in the interior offensive line, particularly for someone that's flexible for different positions and, could maybe pick a couple of snaps at center.
For sure. I think that's what would improve the most down at Texas, and my ability to play center as well.
Actually, have you ever actually played center in a game?
Yes. So in college, like I said, I always played right guard, but I was always the backup center. So if our center went down, I would have slid down to center. So I've taken probably 30 or 40 game reps at center in my career. And then when I went down to Texas, all the scouts are like, yeah, you're an Ivy League guy. He's like, you need to go play center. So actually, during the main showcase, I played exclusively center. And so I think there I kind of proved myself, or proved any doubt if there was any, that I could definitely play center. So I think I really proved some versatility in that aspect of my game.
Yeah, just sort of the last kind of question is about your versatility, not just about positional, but in terms of style of offensive and offensive line play. Do you consider yourself more suited for sort of a power game or a trapping game or movement? I mean, what do you feel like is your strongest suit that you could bring to a team?
Yeah, so my offense, I've actually had the benefit of playing in both a gap-heavy year and then a zone-heavy year. So my true senior year, we were a big gap team. We ran a lot of trap, counter, power, stuff like that. And then my fifth year, this past year, our offense, I was the only returning starter on the offensive line, and we kind of transitioned more to a zone game. So I've had the benefit and experience of playing in both types of offensive schemes for the run game. So I honestly feel pretty comfortable in both. I mean, I feel like in the run game, I'm a mauler no matter what the play is, and that I get movement on pretty much all the plays. So I feel confident in either of those aspects of the game.
That's what I see on film as well. I mean, one thing that's underrated, I think, for interior linemen like yourself is that just from repetition, I think you learn that trapping game, small movements. It's like a violent ballet in tight quarters And some guys never really adjust to that kind of game. They're good. They can pull out and get on the run and, get around the end, and they can power in front of somebody, but kind of getting that step to be able to, catch the right angle or a trap. You seem to be very comfortable with that.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of small body movements involved in catching guys off balance and getting them moving the right way you want. I think I became really well at that the last 2 years in college.
Yeah, you definitely moved some guys. I was joking that your highlight video, it plays like an ad for IHOP because it's just like plates of all you can eat pancakes. And I imagine that you guys have pretty, in my mind anyway, my imagination, that Ivy League players have a pretty good camaraderie amongst each other when they're not on the field. I'm sure that you were beating the hell out of guys for 4 years, and they were like, "We're really glad that you're gone."
Yeah, for sure. Let some new guys hop in there now. It's time to move on.
Yeah, I'm sure interior defenders in the league are definitely ready to move on. Seems like it. So last question: How are you going to spend? It's such a weird situation with the draft. Are you going to be able to be with friends or family, or what's your thought process for what you'll be doing for the actual draft?
Yeah, so I actually did my draft prep up here at State Performance up in Newcastle. So I have been home since around Christmas time. So yeah, I'll be just with my family hanging out in the living room watching, waiting for that phone call.
You guys sick of each other yet?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. We're playing a lot of games, we're doing stuff. Quarantine's been tough. It's just getting long, but yeah, we're hanging in there for sure.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, let us hope that it all ends safely soon for everyone, and particularly so that you can not only find your way with an NFL team, but that you can get to. I hope that there's such a thing as like a rookie mini camp, and actually, I suppose that's a fair question. It's like, what's going to happen to players like Zach Sammartino if there is no rookie camp, there is no preseason? It feels like they might throw you straight into the fire. How do you feel about that possibility?
Yeah, I feel like I'm ready for whatever they have to do. There's not really an option with it. Whatever happens. You got to roll with it. So I feel like no matter what happens, I'll be ready to go.
Perfect way to close. Hey, thank you for being with us. Those of you who haven't yet seen Zach's highlight reel, I'll post a link to it with connection to the show. But it's basically on YouTube under Zach Sammartino. That's Zach with an H, Sammartino, just like the great Bruno. Zach, thank you for being with us, and I hope that you get to remain a Pittsburgher for the next part of your career. That would be great.
Thank you. It would be. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. When you end up a Steeler, you got to come back.
I got you. Will do.
Okay. Thanks again, Zach. Appreciate it. Great job.
Thank you.
Good luck. Time for one more quick interview on today's show. This running back is someone that I think is pretty interesting. A lot of people in the Steelers fan world have had him come on the radar. He's a bigger back, not unlike the way the Steelers are generally like to draft for their team. He reminds me a little bit of Isaac Redman, the Steelers running back from a few years ago, in terms of his sort of play style and demeanor. He's also a candidate for one of that Steeler running backs of recent years where they play a little bigger in college, come to Pittsburgh, have some success as a rookie, and then come in year two, sort of the trimmed down, tighter version, and have some success. And I think that's what we expect with Benny Snell this year. And it may also be the case for this running back from TCU. It's Shewo Olanenua. Okay. Tell me again how to pronounce your name exactly so I get it right when I talk about you, because I'm going to talk about you and say good things.
Appreciate it. Shewo Olanenua from TCU. I came in as a fullback. They told me I'll be moving around, playing fullback, running back, H-back, stuff like that. In the slot as well.
Yeah, but you got your hands on the football.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is for the big guy in practice carrying the ball, you seem to have a lot of mobility. You're not just like a run straight ahead guy. How would you characterize your running style?
Very smooth runner. Great feet. My size. They might think I'm just running forward, but I like to use my feet as well.
What's your real size? What do you call yourself?
6'3". I'm 240.
Yeah, 240 is a Pittsburgh Steelers running back if ever I heard one. So, while you've been out here at the Bowl, you talked to a lot of teams?
Yeah, pretty much every team. So, it's talking to the Steelers as well.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah, that's good. And it's not too often you find a running back 240 that can do some things. How are you in the pass game in terms of your ability pass protecting and catching the football? What kind of how do you characterize yourself in the pass game?
I'm very comfortable in the pass game. I was primarily third down back at TCU. I got a lot of pass protection as well. I have great hands. I rely on my hands. So
yeah, that's something that you have to be able to do.
Yeah.
Like to get on the field in the NFL, you got to be able to pass protect. You got to be able to catch a football. So your expectations for this week? Are you going to get a chance to play first quarter, second quarter? Where are we going to see you?
I think I'm first quarter. Yeah. I mean, maybe even come out first start.
Yeah, that's great.
Something like that.
Are you working out somewhere special for training for the draft? What are you doing?
I'm in Houston at DST. It's in Houston, like Bommarito's satellite location. So
sure. Yeah. And where are you from originally? What's your hometown?
I'm in Houston. Yeah, Kingwood.
That's you from Kingwood. I'm in Houston. That's cool. And you go to TCU. That sounds excellent. Wish you a lot of luck. Can you just quickly one more time? I messed up the beginning.
Okay.
Tell me again how to pronounce your name exactly, so I get it right when I talk about you, because I'm going to talk about you and say good things.
Appreciate it. Shewo Olonlua from TCU.
Excellent, man.
Yes,
really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Appreciate that.
Okay, good luck to you in the game.
Yes, sir.
Cheers. Well, that's all for today's bonus episode of the Steeler Fury Pre-Draft Extravaganza podcast series. I want to thank our guests, quarterback Nick Tiano of Chattanooga, linebacker Christian Rosenbaum of South Dakota State, edge rusher Rondell Carter from James Madison University, interior offensive lineman Zach Sammartino from Dartmouth, and running back Shewo Olonolua from TCU. Don't forget, on the next episode, we've got the finale of our pre-draft extravaganza and the highlight of every season. That's where Perch, FC, and I go head-to-head. We recreate a Steelers mock war room for the draft where we bandy about prospects at each pick, and we make a selection at every Steelers draft pick, all 7 rounds of the NFL draft. That's coming at you tomorrow on the podcast. Don't forget that you can support the show by going to our Patreon page at Steeler Fury at patreon.com. Become a subscriber and help keep the longest-running Steelers podcast in the universe, the longest-running Steelers podcast in the universe. Until then, I'm your host, Will Massasak, a.k.a. Bradshaw DeBen, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter, saying, go get 'em, Steelers.
Ça m'attache,